Sony doesn't think you'll use false color. Let's talk about it. So we recently had a chat with someone from Sony, specifically a rep from the camera division. We're not going to name names here, just out of respect, but we did want to share a few things from that conversation that we think are pretty interesting. One of the big topics that we brought up was how Sony cameras are still missing a few key features that we see on other brands, like open gate recording and false color. Tools like those can make a really big difference, especially when you're trying to match exposure between cameras like the FX3 and the FX6, for example, or recording for multiple deliveries. Right now, Sony's stance, according to this rep that we spoke to, was that features like false color, EL zones, and open gate don't get used much, so they don't see a lot of value in implementing them. But we expressed that we feel that that argument falls a little bit flat. Firstly, they don't really have a way of knowing usage because most of the Sony cameras don't offer those features in the first place, so how would they even know? Of course people aren't using them, they can't! Second, it's an educational issue in our opinion. It's on us as filmmakers and educators to show people why features like open gate are important. And look, it's not even about anamorphic, although we do love it here. Open gate is amazing for vertical reframing and flexible post workflows without losing image area. It's the same with false color. It's a professional tool that makes it a lot easier to achieve consistent results. Just as an example here, when I first got my hands on the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, which was my first real cinema camera, it was also the first camera that I had that had false color built in. The first thing that I noticed in my shooting was that my shots got a lot more consistent from shot to shot because I was able to hit that false color button even in a run and gun situation and see that the skin tones to the shadows all sort of matched up in the same ballpark, and it made post-production a lot quicker for me. And that's a feature that you're just missing out on if you don't have it in camera. And yes, we do know that you can use false color through the app, but the reality is not a lot of people are going to be using a phone as their primary monitor. It's really more as a wireless device that you can hand off to someone that needs to see a feed. The truth is, false color is just way better than zebras, which most users that we speak to tend to dislike or just ignore. Right now, if you're trying to match exposure properly on an FX3 or an FX6, you have to bring a third-party monitor. That's extra gear, more setup time, extra cost, and for no real good reason if you can include it in camera. And look, while I think we can all agree that it's probably less excusable that a camera like an FX6 has false color, a lot of you might be thinking that the smaller cameras like the FX3 make sense because it's a smaller camera. But if we look at the competition, companies like Panasonic and Canon are starting to include false color even on their more entry-level cameras, like the R6 Mark II and the S1R Mark II. Now, we also touched on RAW recording internally. To be fair, we do feel this one's probably less critical, and we do understand why it's not top priority. But when the other brands are offering internal RAW or ProRes options in smaller bodies, Sony's lack of it starts to stand out a little bit. It is a nice to have that competitors are now offering as standard. Even Nikon has it.
I didn't know you were a Nikon man.
Well, I mean, we should all be Nikon men, Taylor. Anyways, now here's where it gets interesting. Canon just dropped the Canon C400 and the C80, which are clearly aimed to compete fairly directly with the FX9 and the FX6 in our opinions. And honestly, these Canon cameras are better in nearly every way except for autofocus and the third-party lens options. They've got more recording options, more dynamic range, more resolution, better monitoring tools, and they're priced competitively. Taylor actually told the Sony rep this directly, and to his credit, he didn't argue. He just kind of nodded and said, yeah, that's true. So at least there's some self-awareness there, which is a good sign. Now, don't get us wrong, Sony still makes sense for a lot of people and we do like their cameras. The FX3 and FX6 and FX30 are great cameras, and the Sony ecosystem is hard to beat, especially if you are already invested in it, and it is worth noting that a lot of production companies, both here where we work in Perth and internationally, are in the Sony FX ecosystem. We actually think this is one of the main areas Canon needs to improve. They need to release something that competes directly with the FX3. But right now, Sony's missing features are starting to look less like limitations and more like choices. If they don't move, someone else will. But anyways, that just about does it here. Let us know down in the comments if you found any of that interesting. We sure did. And also let us know if there's anything that you'd like to know. Maybe we can find out for you guys. I can't make any promises though. Anyways, if you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up and we'll see you next time.